welcome back to the Corporate Burnouts podcast. Hey, Mandy, how are you?
I'm doing so good. How are you?
I am good. I'm very excited. We have a special guest with us today.
Yes. Yes, I'm so excited. I want to introduce you to her, and I am going to read as always so that I don't mess it up. All right. So, everyone, welcome Alison Niermann. She is a leader in recruitment strategy, talent development, and purpose driven performance. For over 20 years, she has helped global and local organizations attract, retain, and elevate top talent to drive growth and culture transformation. As CEO of Tilly Workforce Solutions, Alison partners with companies to improve profitability, reduce turnover, and build purpose-aligned teams through strategic hiring. She is a creator of Hiring to Thrive and the Path framework, and is a speaker, author, and mentor who has served on multiple boards. Alison also brings a creative background in media and marketing as founder of the Midwest's first digital parenting publication, an actor in major motion pictures, including Gone Girl. That's awesome. And a casting associate for America's Got Talent. We might have to pick your brain on some of these things because that is really
Right?
interesting.
Of course.
Fueled by stories, driven by strategy, and committed to impact, Alison's work centers on unlocking human potential to create remarkable careers, cultures, and companies. Please welcome to the podcast, Alison Niermann.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. Nice to be here.
Thanks
Yes,
for being
thank
here,
you.
Allison.
Of course. Happy Monday.
Yes.
Happy Monday.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on with us. Obviously, we have been looking forward to for a very long time talking to a recruiter because our audience is just struggling to land that new job. The one that they've been waiting for, the one that they went to school for, the one that is going to light them up. And it's a ghost town out here.
Mhm. It's been a definitely different year this year. I've been doing this a very long time. 2025 is just very unique for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that we have listeners that are going to benefit from the conversation, even within their current jobs, with the confidence and the understanding of how to go to the table for salary increases and making sure that they're getting their worth and not like talking their employers out of giving them what they want versus,
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's start off and have you just tell us your kind of story and exactly what you do and who you help.
Yeah, for sure. So, like you said, I have over 20 years of helping corporations across North America and globally hire, retain, and just really elevate the right talent. I started in healthcare, everything from hourly workers up to the C-suite, doctors, you name it, nationwide. I've also moved over to global organizations that were publicly traded that had everything from really hard to fill engineers and manufacturing and just, again, that C-suite. Had, like you've seen, I also have a little bit of media and film background, which is really fun. And it brings kind of a different perspective into recruitment, really knowing like how they handle it and how they hire for a role and talent versus just putting a person in a job. And I think that really helps bring that unique perspective on both sides of things. And then 5 years ago, I launched my own company, Tilly Workforce Solutions. And so we help companies in North America place the right people in the right roles to really just elevate their mission and goals. And so we do that by working with them to really make sure that they're hiring the right person in the right role. We talk a lot about that, and I talk a lot about that with candidates as well. There's a difference between a job and a role. A role is meant to really just like move the business forward. And a lot of companies this year in particular kind of readjusted to make sure that they're having the right roles to move the business forward, because a lot of businesses have changed this last year because of technology and things like that. And then we work with them to make sure that they have what I call the ideal candidate. And so the ideal candidate profile is very similar to what a marketing person would do for their buyer persona. So marketing teams have been doing it for decades. And now one of the leading things on the recruitment side is that people are really making sure that they have the ideal candidate profile, so they know once they have that role, they know exactly who they need to go after it. So that's kind of my fast and furious what I've been doing in the last 20 years and kind of where we're headed in the future with our companies and our candidates. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, for sure.
So, your company, do you have a niche of the types of companies that you hire for?
Yeah. So we don't really, we're not industry specific, but we help mid market companies hire on the operations side. So it's anything from ops, sales, finance, marketing, HR, and a lot of hybrid roles. So there's a lot of hybrid roles out there right now that are like ops and growth and sales, or marketing, but the marketing person needs to have the M&A and the R&D component to them.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we step in. We're role specific. Yeah.
Okay. That's really interesting. Yeah, because I had heard that most recruiters do have a specific niche that they work within, which makes sense because if you are having a lot of candidates that you work with, it's easier if they are all looking for, like that you're helping
Like
hire for.
healthcare. Hmm.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes a whole lot of sense. I love that. So I think that one of the biggest things that I didn't know before we started doing this podcast, I had never looked for a job. I definitely never thought of hiring a recruiter.
Oh.
But what benefits to a candidate is hiring a recruiter?
Hmm. Yeah. So there's a big thing to differentiate. So there's like my company, for instance, we work for companies. We don't work for candidates. And most recruiters are that way. So when people think they can hire a recruiter, I don't know a lot of headhunters out there that work that way anymore. And so if they want to partner with a recruiter, we call it our talent network. So we have a talent network of professionals nationwide that are usually referred to us or find us online. And then we interview them to add them to our network. And then as companies who hire us to make placements for them, if we find an alignment with someone already in our network, then that makes it the easiest connection, really, because we already have them teed up, ready to go. Versus what some companies now are doing, and this is kind of pretty important for people to know. Somebody asked me about it last week. There's like a most placeable candidate. So that's like a thing that companies do, recruitment companies do when they have hot talent, they try to send them to market, if you will. And so that is another approach that recruiters can take, but they don't candidates don't hire recruiters, companies do. So that's a good differentiator there.
That is really interesting to me, and I think it's probably smarter than, hiring a recruiter as a candidate, from the recruiter standpoint of working directly for that company and getting the talent that you're looking for versus being the candidate and saying, "Hey, go find me the perfect job." But I do think there are still benefits to the candidate by seeking out an opportunity with a company that is utilizing a recruiter. Can you speak more about that and how that might actually land you a job that's more likely to be a great fit
Mhm.
when you're working with a recruiter?
Yeah. So what I always tell people is when they are looking for a new position, um, you know, I'm going to step back really quick and answer it in kind of a unique way. So what I always tell people is when they're looking for a new position, whether they're employed or not, is to first make what I call one sheeter. So that one sheeter is going to have your personal brand statement at the top. That's not I'm this and I'm looking for this job. It's like your professional brand statement. And then kind of some accomplishments that you've had on one side. And the other side, I always tell them, what are the top 10 companies where you want to work that you align, your interests or values with. And then based off of that, start talking to people as fast and furious as you can and tell them those three things. And then, reach out to recruiters because you never know my network of clients or
Yeah.
companies. And yeah, I mean, half of our business is reaching out to companies on behalf of candidates that I may know of, and then seeing if there's a match for sure. And so to answer your question of like the benefits of working with a recruiter that may have that company, a lot of the positions this year were hires. They were silent. So it's like, in your neighborhood, for instance, if you see somebody down the street that just moved in and you're like, I didn't even know their house was for sale
Yep.
because it was pocket listed. That's majority of our searches are quiet, or they're NDA'd, or it's I happen to have a great relationship with a company who, a month ago was like, we need to rehire our entire marketing team. And I was like, hold on. And I just sent him a message and I'm like, talk to this person. And he was like, I don't know if we can hire yet. And I was like, just talk to him. Fast forward, it took him 2 weeks before they brought him on board. So that's a good reason why you just reach out into your network of recruiters. You're probably not going to always know what companies are using a recruiter, but it's good to have one in your back pocket, because recruiters and recruitment companies are the ones making those connections with everybody, really.
Absolutely. So while I'm listening to you, I'm like, there is just no reason as somebody looking for a job to not be trying to meet as many recruiters as you can and get in their network, right? Because if you're looking for something that was never on Indeed, which is where so many people are, LinkedIn, Indeed, wherever they're looking for their next opportunity, these awesome jobs are, one, not being listed anywhere.
Yeah.
So they never even had a chance. And two, you build a relationship and you become this perfect candidate for some of these jobs coming up, and it doesn't cost them anything. Like, they don't have to pay to be in the
Right.
network of a recruiter. That is a huge hack, because I bet that most people looking for a job have not tried to make any relationships with recruiters. I mean, I I have never looked for a job, to be honest, since I was 19 years old, but I know that my friends who are working, who are looking for jobs right now, I don't think that their main focus is getting on with recruiters, getting
Yep.
on in their network. So, yeah, huge.
Yeah, I think that could be a really, really smart thing. I'm curious when it comes to that with working for the company, if I am candidate A and I am a really great fit for the company in which you are recruiting for, from a salary perspective, can you give us insight on what that looks like from the candidate side, and how do they give us some of those interview tips, like how can they go in and position themselves without positioning themselves outside of the range of the position, but still get their maximum value?
Well, I think it's important. It's kind of a two-part question. So, if you're
Mhm.
positioning yourself, you always want to understand the role and how it impacts the company and what value you bring to that. That's the most important thing that a recruiter or an interviewer or a leader is wanting to know, right? They're going to want to know, what value do you bring? And it's okay to also know your story really well. So, sell yourself real fast. What's your elevator pitch? That'll help position you ahead of everyone, really. Bring your value. Why are you competent? What your character is. Stay positive. These are all just basic interview things that
Yeah.
help you position yourself when it comes to that salary negotiation. Communication, culture fit, what's your career direction. It's all about what value you bring, and really understanding that when they're asking you a question, answer it in that. It's called the STAR method. It's situation, task, action, result. So, what did you do that produced a result? And that can be even if you're flipping burgers, right? I
Mhm.
flipped 50% more burgers and led us to, gold star standard, whatever it is. What are you accomplishing?
Yeah.
And then when it comes to that salary question, I think it's very important that you get it out of the way from day one. If you have an initial conversation with them, it's okay to ask what the range is. Um,
Yeah, I
on
think
a
that's
on a
scary.
verbal.
A lot of people don't do that because it's scary.
Yeah, it is scary. It's scarier to get 3 months into the process and have 6 rounds of interviews and 2 assessments, and then them give you the offer and it's 50 grand less than what you're expecting.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot worse. And that's happening all the time. It's so frustrating. People are like, I went 6 months in and then it turns out we weren't aligned. So
Yeah.
they
You're like,
should
where
be
was that
doing.
question in the beginning?
Where was that question? It drives me crazy. So like they should ask right off the bat, like what's the range? And what the person might ask is, well, what did you make at your last job? So that's not always appropriate nor legal always in certain states. So like you can go back and say, well, my expectations for this next step are. And then
Okay.
you can tell them what your compensation what you want your all-in compensation to be. And so that conversation throughout the, everything, it can look differently for different people. So like what they've made in their last role should really determine what you want to make next. You don't want to take a pay cut. People are always like, I'll take a pay cut. And then I say, well, did you get your nails done this week? Like, think about that. Like, do you have to pay for college in the future? So, like, you have to think about all that. And I think that helps position people, that conversation of what I'm looking for next in an all-in compensation is this. And they need to know it and they need to tell them so that they are not wasting anybody's time.
Yeah, I really like the way you kind of reframed that. Like, I'm not going to answer the question about what I made before, but moving forward, this is what my expectation looks like. It's an assertive but polite way of saying that doesn't really matter.
Well,
We're
yeah,
moving
you're
forward
asking
here.
me. Yeah, you're asking me irrelevant questions because it doesn't matter at all what I made. I was underpaid before, so now I'm looking for this to this. And
Right.
I'm glad that you said that you can ask in that first initial interview because it's kind of like going on a first date. It's like there are certain things that are deal breakers. I'm not getting to a second date unless I know that person wants this or, like that our values align. And so if you're like, I don't want to get all the way down the road, fall in love with the guy, and then, we
then
can't
find
do
out that
this.
he never wants to get married.
Yeah, but it's the same. It's like, don't fall in love with this and don't future trip this job and think it's going to be everything you want. And then they're like 45,000 final offer. No way. You just can't. You can't do that. So I'm glad that you said that it's totally acceptable to ask in that first time. And I think that there are probably some people who that'll rub them the wrong way. I've seen people talk about hiring and interviewing on TikTok and they're like, I just hate whenever people ask this. And it's like, that's a you thing. If you really want the right person, you'll understand why they need to understand the salary pretty quickly, you know?
And if they if a company gets offended by that in the beginning, then it's almost a blessing because you just got a really good peek into their culture.
Yeah, into the
toxicness.
Yeah.
If you're not valuing what I'm saying and you're not understanding the value I'm bringing, then you probably won't value me once I'm there.
Yeah. So when you get the off-putting response to a question like that, you should count your blessings that you have concluded your interview with the wrong company and move on to the next. I like that. That's really, really smart and a good way to reframe because it can get exhausting, when you're interviewing and really looking for the next position, especially if you're not in a current role and this is, starting to get really daunting. Going through interview after interview can be really, really exhausting and can do a number on your mental health. So to just be able to reframe that as this is a positive thing. I'm not going to waste any more time with the wrong company because I don't like the way that they responded to that, which to your point is a window into how they probably deal with a lot of things that you won't like.
Yeah. So you said that you need to ask in that initial interview what the range is, but now we're getting to the point where they are offering you the job. That's amazing. You are getting this job. They said, we're offering it to you for 62,000 plus this, whatever compensation package, benefits, everything. That's a launching pad for a negotiation. Yes.
It is.
Okay.
Depends
and then
on
how
the
does,
company. Yeah.
And then, so how would you recommend people handle that?
Yeah. So I think it depends very heavily on the situation. That's a great
Okay.
answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it is a step in a direction of a career where they want in a company that they want, and they know that like in a year they could become a director or get a promotion, and it's more of a lateral move, that is something to consider. And that is something that you need to have not in writing, like in the offer, but like somewhere in an email. You want to make sure that they've agreed that you're in agreement that that's what's happening.
Uh-huh.
And then just like save that somewhere for
Mm-hmm.
in a year when you're like, remember that conversation that we had about me getting a promotion?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing to think about when it comes to negotiating. If you in that first conversation said, this is my expectation, and now they've come back to you with an offer that's not aligned with that, you can reference that. They say that it's absolutely okay to negotiate. Most people do. It's accepted. People need to understand that that's accepting, just like when you're negotiating on a house or something or a car, whatever. This is the same. You're negotiating your value for that organization. Individuals who do so, I think, end up, getting anywhere between a 15 and 18% increase in that negotiation plan. It's also important to understand the full compensation. So, certain positions will come with bonus and benefits and things like that. And so that's important to understand in that. So
Yeah.
when you are given the offer, of course, if you feel comfortable in negotiating, uh, absolutely, you should do that. Yeah.
All right. I love that. So my other question, because this is not about specifically getting hired, but a lot of our listeners already have the job and they are sitting in a situation where they haven't had a raise in 2 years, or they got the 2% raise last year, or all they got was the cost of living increase. You know what I mean? Like there's so many things that happen. And if you're not fighting for yourself to continually get raises, you might not get them with certain companies who aren't all over it. So what would you recommend to anybody who how to approach their boss to get a raise?
I think the most important thing that people need to know is what value they bring to the role, not the position. A role is a position, it's the position that moves the business forward. So how are you at any level? What are you doing to impact the business? And
Mm-hmm.
everybody does it at every single level. And so if you can figure out how you've quantify that,
Mm-hmm.
and start really building your case, like I did XYZ, which ultimately impacts the company this way. As you start to quantify that, that is a very strong business case. You always business case it out to your boss and those around you. And know your salary at a different organization. I mean, there's so many tools that you can use online. You can ask AI, you can Google it and say, not in a threatening way, but be like, I really love it here. This is why I love it. This is why I love my job. This is how I'm contributing. This is the value that I'm bringing. I've noticed that it is worth this somewhere else. If you make sure you've got a really great
Yeah.
relationship.
Do your research.
Yeah, do your research and know your worth. Be real positive and real professional about it, and then position yourself for that.
Mm-hmm.
And ask for feedback. Like, do you agree that I've brought XYZ to this organization? Do you agree that I'm bringing value and impact to the organization? And be prepared for some real honest answers. But like, I think if
Yeah.
they see that, then it's the natural, and ask the why. Like, can you give me a reason why I wouldn't get a 5% raise this time? Or 3% is usually pretty standard. But
Mm-hmm.
like, is there a reason why I shouldn't have that? And anything I can work on to get that, especially with standards of living right now, like,
It's
yeah.
expensive, and every
Yeah.
year it goes up more than 3%. So that's it's really hard, and I can't even imagine having a large company and thinking I need to give everyone at least 3% more this year. Hopefully, your sales and profits make that possible. But as we know, there's enough greed of when they start seeing big numbers, it's hard to want to give any of that away and not, not take it to the, your bottom line. So I'm glad that you mentioned to talk about kind of the market value of your job. I'm sure that's not what you called it, but
Great term.
seeing what is out there the same. I mean, in our company, we were like, we do the same job as some of these other people. It's a similar job, just like if you were to look at other companies, and we don't make the same as them, and that didn't really work. So I can't imagine trying to say this other company is paying that, and they're like, well, that other
Yeah.
company must have a little bit more money. I think that keeping it positive, never I'm going to leave if you don't give me this.
Yeah.
It's like, but I love what you said. Is there any reason I don't deserve this? You know what I mean? I think that was a very impactful statement. Turn it around on why wouldn't I deserve this? And the answer sometimes is it's just not in the budget, but you have to ask.
I hate
And you
that
have to ask
answer.
every
It makes
Mhm,
sense and it's real, but I hate
mhm,
that answer
mhm.
because my worth is still here.
And my life is still getting more expensive,
Yep.
and I'm still doing and always hopefully growing and doing more work. It just I think a lot of people run into this, and so many just feel so uncomfortable having that conversation. And so
Well, and not to speak gender, but like it's something that women struggle with more than men.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's okay to like show your value. And actually, I think just from being on the corporate HR side of things, I think when somebody does that, they really tell the company that they do value the company and the work that they're bringing, and they really do want to make a difference. And I think that speaks and really elevates the person. And most companies, whether it's, I've had all kinds, I've had amazing cultures and toxic cultures in my life. But I do think that the right person respects that you're advocating for yourself because they know that you will then advocate for the company. And
Mhm.
that speaks volumes. So yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
love
have a
all of that.
question that is similar but kind of goes down a different path there. When it comes to being in, your current role, you are doing fine, smooth sailing, kind of just carrying along, and you are suddenly entrusted with more responsibility. That happens, right? There's growth in multiple ways. Sometimes it's a promotion, sometimes it's the breadth of responsibility. When that happens, do you feel that that is an appropriate time to ask for additional compensation? Or is it more appropriate to accept the additional responsibility, kill it, and then go back and say, look at what I did for you. Now it's time for a compensation conversation?
Yeah, I think that if it's like the first time, I think you accept it the first time.
Mhm.
Yes, oh, thank you for entrusting me in that. And then you begin to build that trust and deliverables. And I think it's really important to always write down, like have a journal on the side of what you're delivering and what you're accomplishing and what impact you've made. And so that, when they come to you the third, fourth time, you can say, hey, I am so grateful that I am being entrusted with all of this. This is amazing. Like, I really love what I do and the impact I'm making on the organization. I'd like to point out that over the last 6 months, I have been asked and I have delivered XYZ. And it's my understanding from, the market that that's actually what a director would do or a supervisor would do. And the compensation for that would be this. I am happy to continue to contribute in for this organization. It looks like it's under a different umbrella. Can we have that conversation?
I like that.
Yeah.
I
I
like
like
that a
that.
lot. Really smart to keep track of those things. I can tell you I did not do that.
Yeah.
I felt it. I felt it
Mhm.
inside looking back going, man, I've really taken on a lot of extra stuff here, but did I have like actual notes on how long I'd been doing more and what that
Yeah.
impact actually
Yeah.
was? Like, no, but it's brilliant
Yeah.
Mhm.
because
You
you don't
have
trip
to.
over your words in those meetings when you know
Yeah.
that you know what you've done.
You know what you know. I like that. You know
Mhm.
what you know.
Yeah. Well, and put it together on a slide deck. I mean, literally be like, I would like to meet with you about my compensation.
100%.
And this is what you can see. It we didn't do this, right? So me and Mandy did the same job for the same company. And we never really talked too much about salary. We would ask for our increases, but they kept changing the compensation at different times with the bonus structure and the just adding things and then pulling them back, like
It was just
mileage
a
and
whole
yes,
restructure multiple times over
yes,
where you might have come out ahead on some of those, and some of those it was like, maybe not as much, but an actual merit increase was not the norm.
right. But we were continued to give. I started off with 2 markets and ended up with 4. That is, it's
Double the
not.
responsibility.
Yes, it's double the responsibility. It's double the amount of people calling me. It's double the amount of bosses, even though those people were not our bosses. They
There were
acted
dotted
like,
lines.
yeah, um, there were people who we answered to. And so there was so much just us not advocating for ourselves. There was nothing truly wrong, but we could have been making more money, and we wanted to make more money to make it feel worth traveling 4 days a week and everything that we did. So I just want people to not sit there and go, this is bullshit, but I'm not going to do anything about it. Like, I want them to have all of the best tools to go and renegotiate their salary because they deserve it. And they have all the proof because they wrote it all down and they made their slide deck and they had the meeting and they were positive and they didn't threaten anything. I'm going to leave if you don't do this. No ultimatums. But this is, do you feel like I don't deserve this? Like, I loved that because it's make them a little uncomfortable, I think.
But on the flip side of that, the other reason that I really like that is that if I'm feeling like, man, this really doesn't feel worth it. I don't feel like I'm getting paid what I'm worth, whatever. And I cannot line out all of the reasons, all of the additional things that I've, not just been entrusted with, but actually delivered on. If I'm going to take stock of those things and I can't look at that list and go, I feel very confident asking for more. Like, I have to challenge myself. Have I done something that's worth more money? Like, I think that there are times where you get in that situation where the burnout sets in, and you're starting to feel a little bit, sluggish on things, and maybe your performance slips a little bit for a while and it still doesn't feel worth it. But that doesn't mean that you're worth more. You haven't increased your value to the company. So just by having this practice in place, it's a gut check for accountability to make sure that, that idea that you have in your head about what you're worth and how you want more, that you're actually providing more for the company to, to make that worthwhile for them.
It's about your business case, like you said, like the deck is amazing, read the room, right? They aren't, once you deliver something, everybody has their own job to do, right? So they don't always remember who contributed what to what. They just don't, because everybody's off doing their own thing, worried about their own job and their own boss and all of that, right? And how they're contributing. And so they don't always remember that, somebody did that and somebody did that, and they don't know that, right? And so it's a fine line between pointing out what you did while also advocating for others. That's important, So when you're building that case, it's like, oh, I did this and, I helped such and such accomplish that as well, or whatever that person accomplished. And the other thing that you're doing as you're writing that down and keeping that journal, let's say eventually you're not going to agree on it. Let's say you have accomplished all these great things and you've shown your worth and that you've increased value in the company or revenue or whatever it is, growth, or you've driven new people to the website or whatever it is, you've created 10 times the widgets you were supposed to, whatever it is that you've done, let's say that eventually you just aren't accomplishing what you want in that increase in salary or a new position or whatever. What you've also done is you've just written your resume. Yeah. So you've just journaled yourself for a year and it's fresh, instead of you're now a year and they're not going to give you a new job and a new salary or whatever. And now you're trying to think back through the last 5 years. Well, what did I do? Guess what?
Yeah.
You've just written your resume for yourself, and you've just positioned yourself for a new opportunity at a job that will value
excellent
you.
transition.
Good.
Yeah, that's an excellent transition, because we do need to talk about resumes, especially in this AI world. You don't have the person sitting reading 100 resumes. You have them being read by AI in a lot of cases. Is that true? I mean, that's what we're hearing. And filtering some to only show the hiring managers a certain amount of them.
Recruiter. Usually it's the recruiter, depending on the size of the organization. You know, small companies won't have a recruiter. Mid-market will have at least one or two. Really scaling companies, they're going to have a team. Mid-market works with companies like us. In order to filter out that, I stay away from a lot of the ATS AI because of that. So there's two parts to that. One, if you want to stand out, go directly to the company and ask for an opportunity. Hands down. You know, applications right now, if you look on LinkedIn, for instance, those applications are in the thousands. And I would say 98% of those applications aren't going to align with the job, the role, or even the location. And same with Indeed. So Indeed has a filter on there that if you've ever applied to a job that fits a certain title, they have the right to apply on your behalf. And so that's a whole different level of Jumanji, really. And so it's crazy right now out there. And so what I do tell people is, you know, if you really do want to apply for a job online, make sure that something on your resume aligns with that job. Make it truthful, though. Do not use AI to write a resume according to a job description. That's a lie. I've interviewed people so much that I have caught them in a lie of, well, I used AI to get this interview. And I'm like, and scene, like, we're done here.
Yeah.
Like, we're moving on. But I will say, yes, for the AI filters, they're just looking for keywords that fit. And so you need to make sure that your resume reads to the job that you're applying to, not just a blanket, this is what I do job. So that'll get you through that round, through the AI. And what a lot of AI tools are using right now, it's not only a screening tool, they're categorizing you for future opportunities. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. So like a lot of tools will say, okay, this person might not align with this, but they'll put them in a bucket for a future opportunity. So that when a recruiter opens up a job, before they post it anywhere, they're going through that filter of, oh, these people applied a month ago, they didn't fit that one, but now they might fit this one. So that's a positive that I see in it. But yeah, from a candidate perspective, just make sure that your resume has the keywords that AI may be screening for. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that there's a lot of people out there on the job hunt that aren't tailoring their resume for each job that they're applying for. And I think that can be, it is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. But if you're looking for the right job, it's not too much to ask, right?
No.
Tailor it just a little bit. Make sure that it's personalized for the role that it is that you're seeking out within that company. That's gonna set you apart from the thousands that are just automatically being applied for sure. But it's gonna let them know that you're actually interested in working here within this role. You're not just hyping up yourself on what you've accomplished before and you need something. You've tailored this here, and I can see how you might fit.
It's so important, especially because, like, from my point of view, you know, when I do get applications, I can tell when people are just on their app and they're going apply. I mean, I've gotten 3 people from the same, you know what I mean? I'm like, you just applied. You literally just applied to this job yesterday. Like, how many times? And they don't always, you know, if a job board doesn't always cancel out the same person from the same role. And so it is really important to know that. I will say, though, like, one of the biggest differentiators that I think helps somebody stand out is to have that professional brand statement. And so that's not just a, like, I'm, you know, responsible for, and like the robotic 20 years ago statement. It's just that really professional statement. So like who you are as a professional, what your expertise is, what you solve, and what you value in that role. And so if you have that just like ready to roll off your tongue, they'll read that and they'll be like, ooh, that's the person that we're looking for. They'll see it real fast. Yeah, that's important to have.
I'm glad you brought up the brand statement again, because we'll definitely clip this one for social media. That is a huge takeaway. And it might be something that people who have applied to 1,000 places now are missing. And so any leg up that they can get, I love. We'll share that out everywhere. I do have a question about resumes because, just kind of debunking or saying what's real. I have heard that the Canva kind of resume doesn't do as well when it's being run through AI for the keywords and things like that. So tell me about, do you care what a resume looks like? Do you care about, you know what I mean? Like the format, the everything, or is it mostly just the words on the page? Tell me what they're looking for, what.
Yes, so color isn't great. That's going to be hard for a system to read. Light gray is fine, but when you get into all these colors, it's like, stop. So that gets hard for people to read. I like them clean. I like them simple. I like them to tell a powerful story real fast. And the way to do that is your name, your contact, I'm going to say it again, the statement's great. And then under each job, make it clean. Don't give me everything. Give me the most powerful things and make it quantifiable when you can. Put the title of your job. I like it first versus unless you've worked at the same company and then you've risen up. That's a different resume. But I like to see the title. This is who I was. This is where I worked. If it's a company that I'm not familiar with, it's perfectly okay to do a one-line sentence in italics of who that company is. That's going to tell me that you align with this job. Small company with 30 states that did the following. And if you were laid off because they are no longer with us or they merged, put it in that statement right there. Get the elephant out of the room. Put on there in your print, in that italics that I worked for XY, this is a manufacturing company with global sites that does the following. They merged with such and such and had a reduction of staff. Put it on there. Like, just get out of the room. Then under that, do some of your bullets that are reverse the STAR. So the STAR interview process, it's a behavioral-based interviewing that, again, it's situation, task, action, result. Flip it on your resume. What's the result and what did you do to get there? So, if you're in HR, for instance, decrease turnover by 20% by implementing XYZ. Whatever, just tell the story really powerful. That's going to make you stand out. And that's going to be a real clear story that aligns with what they're trying to accomplish. So that's how I like them. Canva's beautiful. I love Canva. But if you want a 2-column, that's okay too. But I wouldn't get too crazy with the design or anything. AI won't pick it up and it'll get too busy for somebody to read and it's too overwhelming. They just want to know who you are, what you've done, and what you're going to do for them.
I love that.
I think it's really smart.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to understand, because when you used to drop off your resume places whenever I was first looking for a job, it needed to stand out, right? It couldn't be in that pile of black and white. It needed to, it needed to have something to it. And I think that we're in an opposite situation now. It needs to not be too busy, and it needs to get to the freaking point. And I like that.
It needs to get to the point. Yeah.
Yeah.
They need to be able, and two, it's funny, there's 5 generations right now in the workplace. And so you have generations that are used to looking, once it gets to the person, past AI, past tech, once it gets to the person, you have generations that are used to seeing different things. And so more seasoned generations, they do once you get to the point. And the younger generation, who are the newer recruiters, well, amazing. Everybody's amazing at this point, I think. But like, their skill set's going to be different as well. So they can't read between the lines as well. And a more seasoned person doesn't have time to. So,
Yeah.
it's important that you get to it and tell them what they need to hear and what value you're going to bring to the organization. And that'll resonate real fast with the right person. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we covered this. Of course,
for
being
sure.
in the design world, it applies. But I have seen in the past some really wild, colorful resumes with even like headshots on the
Oh, yeah,
page.
don't
And
do
it was
that.
like, oh, okay, that could be impressive. Or it could be like, are we playing arts and crafts? Like, what are you trying to do? Get a job or color? What, was just really kind of curious as to what message that actually sends, because black and white can seem really boring. But to your point, if the story is strong enough, just like a book, I don't have to have pictures in there to want to read it. I've painted the picture in here.
Yeah. So it's funny too, the whole headshot thing is interesting. So when I worked for a global organization, certain countries, you have to have a headshot and your address. And if you have childcare, I mean, they give you your full story. From an American standpoint, we're not allowed to know all that.
Yeah.
Or we could be we could be accused of discriminating against. So I always shy away from the headshot. If you want them to see what you look like, put in your LinkedIn profile. I'll click on it. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
If you want color, if you're in a marketing, advertising, creative, design, architecture, all of those things, put in your portfolio link. That's where you put that.
Yeah.
In fact, I would require it from anybody that's applying to those jobs. I would require that you have a portfolio or a website that I can link to. Then I'm going to see all your beautiful designs in your color, and that you can color inside the lines or not inside the lines, whatever it is, and what you can build and create. That's where that's appropriate. Put it in a link for me to do that. But try to avoid a lot of that. You want your creativity to show a little bit as appropriate, and you can do that with the format of a resume for sure, but still make it clean and make your story pop. Yeah.
These are such great tips. Yeah. I think that people will take so much from this conversation, but I think that they could take even more possibly from I really want to talk about some tips that you have for, okay, you got the first interview. Now what? How do you prepare? What do you do to make sure that you're ready?
So prepare is the best word. So prepare, professional, and positive. So I always like to remind people to really research the company and this position and truly understand how they fit into it, and also understand their own story, because the right recruiter or the right interviewer or hiring leader might hear something that they have done in the past that will really resonate with them as something that they've talked about internally that they need to do that might not really be on the job description. So as you're preparing, just really know your story, answer those questions in what I call, again, I'm going to say it again, the STAR method. So really know like the results that you've brought, and the tasks that you've done to accomplish that. That's how you can do it. If you're in a Zoom interview, make sure that you are dressed professionally as if you were in person. And make sure that you'd be surprised. We're still on Zoom for those first interviews. A lot of people are. And so make sure that the space is professional. It's clutter free. Make sure your sound is good. Jump on ahead of time. Make sure lighting is good. Make sure all of those things that you would do in person, you're putting forth in that. Make sure that you're always positive. So the question's always going to come up about your past employers and why you left and all of that. Keep it brief, keep it positive, keep it moving forward, and then always position yourself to the job that you want, and how you will make the best impact for that. Yeah, that's what I always like to tell people.
I love that. I think that there's probably people who really don't prepare, and I'm sure that it is very apparent.
Yeah.
I also think it's important to, sandwich it, right? So like, as you're talking to them, people want to know why specifically you're interested in not only this position and this role, but their company. So know what resonates with you, right? Like, oh, I noticed that you just, you just launched into this great new government role, segment, and you're creating great spaces for them. That's really important to me because of XYZ. And I also noticed that you guys really value community service. I just volunteered at blah, 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 whatever, like make it fit, make it make sense to them, and really bring it home for them as well. And always just, stay positive, especially for those who have been unemployed for a while. It gets hard after a while to do this time and time again. But it's important to understand that while it might be the candidates get the interview that week, it's that person's first time for them to really get to know you. So that's important to just keep positive and bring out your personality. And yeah,
you can't let the 49 that came before this run you down, or you're not going to show up as your best self.
And I'm sure people run into that. But I think that something that I would want to know if I was going to find a job after I had a bad split from my last one, let's say, you might have gotten fired, you might have left because of a toxic boss. I guess I would just love to hear how you spin that to try and get the next job.
Specifically,
to keep it positive and not be like, my ex-girlfriend is crazy. You're like, I that person was nuts, I had to leave. How do you spin that? Or I got fired. I would just take responsibility for why I got fired. But sometimes you get fired by a person that, shouldn't have fired you. How do you have that conversation? Because you got to get a job again.
Okay, so if you're talking about a past role or why you may no longer be there and why you're looking, or if you were terminated or something like that, I always tell people to just keep it really high level and positive and move it forward. So legally, all they can know or ask a former company is dates and titles. That doesn't mean that somebody won't pick up the phone and call a buddy who they know that worked there or whatever. But there's two sides of every story. So I always tell people, just keep it brief. Like, there was no longer an alignment of value or opportunity. There was no longer an alignment in, and why I'm excited to talk to you about this position is because XYZ. And I'm excited to bring forth with your organization this. Pivot it real fast and move the conversation along. You don't have to go deep into why, and if a lot of things that are happening right now are that companies are being bought out or merged or they've restructured. And that's okay. You can say, I had an amazing opportunity while I was there. I was able to accomplish XYZ or learn XYZ. It ended up that they restructured their organization because of XYZ, which brings me to this opportunity to do the following. So I always tell people just keep it real brief, real positive, and then move the conversation forward.
I love all of that because it can be uncomfortable. Now, I understand a little bit of hiring laws because we took so many classes for that in corporate, because you have to not get sued. So but what I want to understand is, if I'm the hiring manager and I decide to call the buddy and I say, listen, why is this person here when they used to be there? So in the second interview, can I, as the hiring manager, say, so I talked to someone who works at that business and blah, 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 blah. Did you get fired for stealing from there? Can I say that as a hiring manager?
I mean,
and how do you handle it if they do?
So people are free to say whatever they want to say. They shouldn't do that, because then that's outside of the realms of fairness and non-discrimination and, defamation and all of that. They really shouldn't. People do, because people are, have no filters anymore. If they do say that, if you got fired, for instance, I would just own it and move on quickly. Do it quickly. If somebody, I've never had that situation where somebody got fired. I have had a situation where somebody poured coffee over somebody else. That was not okay, you know, and then we ultimately didn't end up hiring them.
Yeah,
For
when that comes
obvious
out in an interview.
reason.
Listen, everybody has a breaking point.
I mean, they were
Yeah.
like,
I've never
I had
done
a-
it, but
I mean, that I was like,
should've-
okay, yeah.
Should have taken a mental health day. Instead, I poured coffee over someone's head, and I learned my lesson quickly. I won't do it again.
Yeah, I figured out that I don't like that person. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like the stealing, lying, and all of that, you know, I would just explain it really high level and then move on, you know?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wondered because I'm sure that people go into these interviews and are a little nervous about explaining why they aren't at their previous job. And so many people are leaving for wild reasons, or and it's like, but yeah, just keep it positive. Use Chat GPT to help you come up with how to spin.
100%.
How do I spin this to not sound like I hated my boss, so I had to leave quickly? You know, like figure out how to do that, and I think that it'll
And
help you.
don't
So I
go
love
into
that.
it. Like I have people that, for 5 minutes they're talking about it. And I'm like,
Oversharing. Yeah.
oversharing. I'm like, don't overshare.
Yeah.
Just give me the brief 30-second
Mhm.
why you're not there and then move it along. The ability to move it along speaks volumes about somebody, about how they handle it, how they've owned it, and how they want to improve in the future. That speaks
Mhm.
just as loudly as the
Yeah.
reason. Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
it definitely
And
speaks to the maturity, right? If you're
Mhm.
going to go on and on and on about this, you're clearly you're still there in
Mhm.
here. Move
Mhm.
on. Let's
Mhm.
go.
Yeah. And I think that being able to move things along without being long-winded can be really helpful because most of the bosses that I've had have been like, let's get to the point. They don't have time for your excuses. They don't have time for you to explain why. They just want to know what happened and how you're fixing it. And I worked with so many people through the years who couldn't figure it out. And I would just watch those bosses boil because it was just like, I can't physically stay in my skin if you're going to over explain everything to me. And a lot of bosses are like that. So I'm sure
Yeah.
that a hiring person is like, for this guy, we have to make sure that somebody is concise because
Yeah.
that isn't gonna work with him.
And you have to be respectful of the person's time, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
you're showing respect. You're showing communication skills, maturity, culture fit, and respect, you know? And so both sides of the party will want that, you know? And you always want to speak. It's no different than earlier when we were talking about, you know, positioning yourself and having your deck. You know, you always want to know who you're speaking to, right? So, like, it's no different than if you're doing a presentation at work and you have the finance person, the marketing person, the HR, and the ops person, right? Each of those people are going to want to hear something else. Finance is going to want to hear about the money. Marketing wants to know how it's going to be positioned and sold. And HR wants to know how it's affecting the policies and the people. And operations wants to know how the whole thing's going to roll out. And
Yep.
so I think it's no different in an interview. You have to know who you're speaking to, know your audience, and know how to position yourself in a manner that will resonate with that person for the role inside the company. Yeah.
It's all such good stuff. Well, we have a couple of questions, listener questions, and Mandy's going to ask you those because we want to take advantage of having you on here
Yeah.
to answer the recruiter questions.
For sure.
So the first question that I have is, how can I tell if a recruiter actually has my best interest at heart or if they're just trying to fill a position quickly?
So if it's an in-house recruiter, that's a good question. If they have your best interest at heart, I mean, I would just ask the questions like not in a salesy way, but I would ask them what they're looking for in this position. What are the top qualities in the position? And then I would always ask at the end, you know, is there any questions that maybe I didn't cover that would help you align, you know, my experience with this opportunity to impact the company. So I would ask those questions and then just, you know, listen to the recruiter to understand. You know, a lot of positions I'm seeing right now, if it's an hourly worker, if depending on the role, you know, those high volume ones, they kind of like filling them. The right companies right now are actually being pretty slow to hire because they don't want to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to make a mistake. It's taking a lot of time because they really do. So I think for that person, you know, if you want them to have your best interest in heart, first of all, they're going to have the company's best interest of heart, right? They work for the company. And so I think if you want them to have your best interest at heart as well, you can ask questions about the position, how you align with it, and the career direction of it. That will help a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to advocating for yourself. They are working for the company, but you got to make that work for you, and it either does or it doesn't.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, one more. If I get multiple offers, what's the best way to negotiate without burning bridges or coming off as greedy?
Wow. Well, first of all, congratulations at getting
I know,
multiple
right?
offers in this market.
Great problem.
Great problem to have. So the first thing I would tell them to do is really, before you start negotiating only on money, understand that you are not, while money is amazing and we all like making it, you shouldn't be going to a job solely on money. You should be going because it's filling a purpose-driven part of you, right? So like what resonates with you the most? Was it the culture of one position over the other? Was it the work? Was it the mission statement? Is it the career direction? So really take a more holistic approach and look at what position really lights you up the most inside that organization, right? And maybe then if that position that you really liked inside that organization that you would love to go to work for every day is a lower offer than the others, go back and negotiate and say, you're my top pick because of XYZ. And I really think that I can bring the following to the table and I'm excited to do it here. However, I do have another offer. I have multiple offers, and this is what they are. Are you open to negotiating for a higher thing? And then put it back on them. Are you, this is the offer I got. I want to work for you. However, and put it back on them. Are you open to negotiating for a higher percentage in XYZ? Also, make sure that they're looking at the whole package. So like one position might be like, here's the base. And you're like, that's amazing. But their benefits are awful and you're never going to get off work and they have no flexibility and their culture sucks. You know what I mean? So like, it's important to kind of take a bigger look at all of that and then negotiate towards the thing that you want to do the most.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that the way that you framed that makes it a lot easier to actually do that. Like, I'm telling you, this is my first pick. I want to work for you, but I have a really great offer. Is there room for negotiation? And if there's not, you are still in the driver's seat as to whether or not to accept the offer as is. So you're not really risking it. And I don't think it really appears greedy to say, I have a really great offer over here. Is that something that we can talk about? Because it's just a conversation.
It's just
because the worst they can say is no. And then you still have the opportunity.
And the way they say no may actually be a pretty good telling sign of how they operate on the inside and how they really are. Their true colors might come out real fast.
Yeah, and it may tell you that you either really want to be there because of how they handled it or you really don't. And I'm glad that I know now.
Yeah, and the right company, that will actually excite them that you have multiple offers because it tells them that they picked the right person.
Yeah.
That they got their job right as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially in this market because nobody has multiple offers right now. That's incredible. This was amazing. I want to make sure that we end this with you giving us your top 3 tips for job seekers right now. I think that it's really important to let people know what they should be expecting out there and what your big tips are and just anything else that you might want to add before we wrap it up.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a new opportunity, whether it's internally or externally, I always like to tell people the following. Really know your story. Put that story in a one-sheeter that helps you with your own sort of processing and your blueprint to going after. That one-sheeter, again, is your personal professional brand statement. That's who you are as a professional, what you've done, what you value, and where you want to do it next. On that one sheet is also the top 5 accomplishments that you've made. Make them quantifiable when you can. And then on the other side of that sheet is the top 10 places where you want to work not the ones that are posting jobs, where you want to work. And then start reaching out into your network fast and furious and tell them, this is who I am, this is what I've done, this is where I want to do it next, and this is why. That will open up the door for you a lot faster than, I don't know, I'm looking for a marketing role, I don't really care where. Tell them, this is where I am, this is where I want to work. And somebody will say, oh, I know somebody there. Hold on. Most people are willing to do an intro. And that'll open a door, So that's what I tell people to do, is make that, know your personal brand, and then find the opportunity that really fits with you and what you want to do next, and stay, positive, and know your story so that you can get the right role, so that you can make the impact that you deserve to make. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, you do have the recruitment training course. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and if that's something that we want to promote?
Yeah, so that's more for companies right now. So since I've been doing this for like 20 years, and I've spoken a lot about it on the inside, how people can find their right person. It's called Hiring to Thrive. And it's a course that I developed after speaking on it and having so many people reach out and go, teach me that, please. It's a 6-step process into how to hire the right person for the right role to move your company forward. And so it's just an online course that if companies are really struggling to hire right now, they can go on and purchase it, self-paced, comes with a complete workbook that they can do on their own. And if they want to hire us to help them implement it, they can. But if not, it's completely self-paced. So yeah, it's called hiringtothrive.com. That's where they can find all the information. Yeah, thanks for asking.
Yeah, I definitely think that you'll want to include that for sure.
Yeah.
We will put that in the show notes.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
And I'd also like you, since we're, talking about you, tell us what your speaking engagements are all about as well.
Yeah, so I have 2 different topics. One is on hiring. So I speak to companies that are looking to hire, and I teach them sort of my formula in doing so. Everything from how to formulate the right role, to finding their ideal candidate, to making sure the candidate experience, because that is key right now. The candidate experience is winning the right talent, how to attract the right people to the role, not just anybody. The whole throw a big blanket out there and hope something catches. That's not working right now. I teach people how to go directly to the right candidate, how to interview for success, and then bring them on board so that they're building that powerhouse team right off the bat. So that's what I speak on the hiring side of things. On the candidate side of things, I speak a lot. Just emerging leaders and professionals about just sort of their career journey, how to position themselves. And then what I do a lot of speaking on is called Ignite Your Spark, the Path Forward. And so that's the 4 parts of what I call the path. It's how you reach success at a faster rate, whether it's building a team or a professional brand or whatever it is. And the path formula that I speak on is, again, I love a good acronym. So like 4 steps of the path are: pursue your purpose, activate a plan, trust your spark, and help others shine. I feel like if you wake up every day and in a meeting in your life, if you know what the purpose is, what the plan is, you trust your own talent to do it or the talent of your team, and then you're helping somebody else shine, you're going to reach remarkable success a lot faster. So those are the 2 things that when I'm asked to do a keynote or speak, I speak on those 2 things.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was all incredible. We've been needing to have you on for a very long time because everyone asks us about it. Everyone asks about how to get a job in this job market. Everyone asks, if I'm going to leave, am I going to be able to get a job? There's so many things to it, but I think that you broke things down in such an easy way. I really think that it will help. My one last question is, if I'm looking for a recruiter, is LinkedIn the best place to start to interact with recruiters, or what would you give as that advice?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn's a great start. And look, if you're industry specific, just start Googling who in your market is in that or role. A lot of recruiter, like we talked about earlier, it's 50-50. Some of us are just role specific, some are industry specific. So yeah, I would just start reaching out and asking for a brief conversation. The best way to do that is through a referral. I will say that, especially in this market. I'm so fortunate and so blessed that lots of people want to talk to me. My wait list is pretty long right now. So I prefer a referral so that I know and can understand where the person's coming from or
Yep.
why, and not just a blind, you know, help me find a job type of a thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's completely fair. All right. Well, we will link all of your things in the show notes and everyone will know where they can find you. But definitely follow Alison. I'm sure that you have things to share on your socials, right? And if you need anybody to speak or if you need a recruiter, just get on her wait list.
Yeah.
Connect with her on LinkedIn. I love it.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Yeah. I'm all over LinkedIn and Instagram. So follow me.
I like it. Well, thank you so much for being on with us today, Alison. And I hope that you have a great rest of your week.
Great. Thank you. It was nice meeting you guys.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you next week.